Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. It's Wednesday, September 4th, 2013. I'm Gigi Ernetta. Here's tonight's top stories.
Tonight, Obama says the red line in Syria is not his. Plus, liberals are starting to reject Obama's case for Syrian strikes. And David Knight sits down with a documentary filmmaker exposing government overreach into the inhumane destruction of wild horses. All this and more on the Infowars Nightly News.
So Obama can't decide if it is his red line or not.
We have communicated in no uncertain terms with every player in the region that that's a red line for us.
I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line.
So it's not his red line, it's the world's red line. In Sweden, Obama laid out his rationale for wanting to attack Syria on the same day a Senate committee will vote on a proposed resolution authorizing limited U.S. military strikes. He also insisted he had the authority to order attacks, expected to be cruise missile strikes on Syrian military command targets, even if Congress rejects his request for authorization. And the liberals don't believe Obama or Kerry. They're completely against this strike. President Obama's liberal activist base is adamantly opposed to military strikes in Syria. According to a new survey, the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, known as PCCC, released Wednesday, they say that more than 57,000 of its activists weighed in, and 73% of them oppose the U.S. taking action in Syria. So the liberals, they don't believe Obama and Kerry. They think they're lying. And they're not alone, because so does Putin. Vladimir Putin thinks he's lying, and he said today, they are lying, of course, in an ugly way. I watched the debates in Congress. A congressman asks Mr. Kerry, is Al-Qaeda there? He says, no, we are telling you responsibly that they are not. They, the U.S., know this, that al-Nusra, a branch of Al-Qaeda, is currently fighting in Syria. It was very unpleasant and surprising for me. We talked to them and assume they are decent people. But he is lying, and he knows he's lying. It's sad. The U.S. Senate is, in essence, in the process of legitimizing aggression. And also from Russia, they say that the chemical weapons are actually made by rebels. In a new breaking report released by the Russian Foreign Ministry, it has now been announced that the March 19th chemical weapons responsible for the attacks in Syria and blamed on Assad's government are linked up to rebel-made weaponry. The report from Russia's RT reads, probes from Khan al-Assal show chemicals used in March 19th's attack did not belong to standard Syrian army ammunition, and that the shell carrying the substance was similar to those made by a rebel fighter group, the Russian Foreign Ministry stated. The report goes on to mention that the way is being paved for military action. And yesterday, a high-level source confirmed that nuclear warheads were being transported. They actually left Abilene from Dyess Air Force Base and were headed to a place in South Carolina, an undisclosed location. The brief report from the top-level military source, which was written in a rush to get the information out, reads, Dyess is beginning to move out nuclear warheads today. I got a tap from Dermo earlier. He said it was the first time they have even acknowledged since being put there in the 1980s. No signature was required for the transfer, there was no directive, and he said the Dyess commander was on site to give authority to release. No one knew where they were going, really, but the truck driver said to take them to South Carolina, and another pickup will take them from there. This leak inside the military-industrial complex comes after prior sources have also revealed to us that B-1s and B-2 bombers were ordered to head out of their respective bases. To learn more about the nuclear warhead transfer, you can go to Infowars.com and see the full report. Now, Syria could be the proving ground for Cyberwarriors in the U.S. Experts say President Obama is unlikely to order the kind of standalone cyber attack against Syria that the United States launched against Iran's nuclear facilities a few years ago. Syria's air defenses would likely be among the first targets of any cyber attack. The experts said that U.S. forces could trick the country's radar system into seeing nothing as American jets passed overhead or disrupt Syrian missile sites designed to shoot down U.S. aircraft. any cyber attack would be relatively difficult to detect, said James Lewis, a cybersecurity scholar at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. The best attacks would be the ones where the Syrians never noticed they were being interfered with. And Obama plans to make a pit stop. Yes, he's going to make a stop in Russia for the LGBT activists. Yes, during the G20, he is going to find some time to meet with them. The LGBT, as you might know, is the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights activist. Nobody is more offended than me by some of the anti-gay and lesbian legislation that you've been seeing in Russia, Obama said last month. So before the G20 summit, Obama canceled a scheduled meeting with Putin. So Obama knows how to make friends. So he's going to go to Russia and tell them how to do it. We are on the edge of World War III. Is this really an important stop, Mr. President? And now for some good news. In Tennessee, Republicans U.S. Senator Lamar Alexander and U.S. Representative Stephen Fincher announced plans to team up on a bill requiring the federal government notify taxpayers when the IRS accesses their tax returns or other information. The notice must include who accessed the information, the purpose of doing so, and how the information was accessed. Taxpayers would also receive a copy of the information accessed and any report issued on how it was used. And that's good news. So hopefully they'll be able to see that through and will be protected from the IRS. And David Knight speaks with James Anaquad Kleinert. He's a director who made a film that exposes government overrun into inhumane territory and pretty irresponsible fiscal behavior. So stick around till after the break.
ProPure is introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. This is a revolutionary system, and I am so pleased to be able to introduce it to you. This is the Pro One by ProPure. You wanted it, you got it. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. In the last 20 years, companies have developed technologies that will cut out classical fluoride, sodium fluoride, with a secondary filter. Because sodium fluoride and its derivatives are so incredibly tiny, some of it still gets through, so you've got to add a secondary fluoride filter onto it, which still doesn't cut out some types of fluoride. Ladies and gentlemen, ProPure for 2 years has been quietly developing this with scientists and engineers. It was designed in the U.S. They only have factories that can make this in England. So it's made in England. And this is the only filter that not only cuts out the other bad contaminants and also the fluoride in one step, it cuts out the acid derivative of fluoride. It is the only one that does it. And out of the gates, we have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the system you need to add to all of the ProPure systems that you've gotten from InfoWarsStore.com. The new Pro One filter element does it all. Water, fluoride, and other heavy metals. This is 2-stage filtration in one filter element. To be clear, Pro One water filters, designed and created by ProPure, are the only gravity-fed filters out there, period, that don't just cut out so-called sodium fluoride, but cut out what is added to most water supply systems, and that is hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a hopped-up, energized form of fluoride that is literally dozens of times more deadly to your body. That's what's being added to almost every municipal water supply, not just here in the United States, but in Canada, England, the UK in general, and much of Europe. New Pro 1 filter elements are good for more than 2,400 gallons, blowing away the competition. The Pro Pure Pro 1 is a revolution in gravity-fed filters. Take advantage of this today. It's a win-win. Support the Infowar by purchasing it from InfoWarsStore.com. Support the broadcast and get the lowest price out of the gates anywhere. So no matter where you live in the world, it is time to get the latest development in gravity-fed water filtration, up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. No other filter can cut any of that out. Only Pro Pure and their new system, Pro 1. All available at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. This is a revolution against the tyrants. They love putting the toxic acid base of fluoride into your water. They love the fact that it's an adjuvant supercharging the trace Prozac in the water and the hormones and the other chemicals. They love the fact that it supercharges the GMOs that you're eating. By cutting out fluoride, you cut out the turbocharger in all the poison being artificially introduced into your body. This is what I use. It's a win-win. You get a high-quality product at the lowest price. You support the InfoWar. Get your Pro Pure with the new Pro 1 filter today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139.
Well, listeners to Infowars are well aware of the unintended consequences of government bureaucracies. They also know how corporatism works, how large corporations can use the government to leverage control of whatever assets they want to control. Now, we can talk about these effects, but what really drives it home is when we see the effects on children and on animals. And we have a documentarian, James Anaquad Kleinert, who has done a documentary about the Bureau of Land Management and how they are mismanaging our wild horses. That documentary is Wild Horses and Renegades, and he is now producing a sequel to it. We want to talk to him about that, as well as the problem of wild horse management in America. Well, welcome, James. It's amazing, the photography that you've sent me, the trailers that I've seen, the excerpts I've seen from the documentary. Before we talk about the problem, let's show a brief clip, one of your trailers right here.
Okay.
Independent analysis of BLM's own 2008-2009 wild horse population numbers show approximately 15,000 wild horses remain wild in the American West. The average cost of roundups, $2,500 per horse rounded up, with over 40,000 wild horses and burros currently in holding facilities. Recently, wild horse advocates used the Freedom of Information Act to obtain records from the Bureau of Land Management, exposing plans for euthanizing America's wild horses and burros. We have this schizophrenic relationship with what is wild, with the American West. We revere it. We are jacked on freedom. We name our greatest road trip car the Mustang. But what are we doing to the real thing? We are destroying it. We are at war with ourselves. You need to act now. go to your local congressional and Senate representative's office and speak to them directly. Or go to www.senate.gov or www.house.gov. Yes, you can.
That was pretty amazing. I tell you, one of the things that stood out to me about that was the fact that they're paying $2,500 per horse to round these horses up. And one of the articles that you sent me about a Tom Davis who's buying massive quantities of these horses and not doing what essentially they want to have done, which is adopt them out. Instead, he's slaughtering them. They sold it to him for like $10 a head. So they paid, and he's gotten 1,700 horses this way, about 70% of the amount purchased through the program. That would mean that he got, for about $17,000, he got what it cost the taxpayers $4.25 million to round these horses up. Tell us what your concerns are. I mean, it's much broader than just the dollars and cents. But a lot of people are going to be interested in just the massive transfer. This is corporatism that we see. He's not necessarily a corporate entity, but this kind of transfer, massive subsidy of one person to make a huge amount of money, and then what he's doing with the horses, just amazing.
Yeah, well, you know, that particular story, that shows the underbelly of what's happening to America's wild horses. We, the taxpayers, are paying millions and millions of dollars for these wild horses to be rounded up and removed. And then on the back end, many of them are ending up in horrific slaughter situations. Mm-hmm. And men like Tom Davies they're profiting on this. And
there was a story about, wasn't it Willie Nelson's horse, where he bought it from a guy who picks these horses up in mass and hopes that he can dump them quickly enough so he doesn't have to feed them. Is that correct?
Yeah, they refer to these people as kill buyers. And kill buyers, they buy domestic horses and they get America's wild horses through different avenues. And then they turn around and they make a very fast dollar taking them to slaughter. What most people don't realize is we, the taxpayers, we're spending about roughly $125,000 a day to warehouse America's wild horses. And one thing that we're really pushing for, and a solution to this, is to manage America's wild horses in the wild. Mm-hmm. Now, this can be done very effectively and at a fraction of the cost of what we're spending now in this BLM program that, according to a National Academy of Science report, which was just released a couple months ago, says the program is completely out of touch, completely mismanaged, and you know, they're requesting that the BLM make some changes to be responsible not only to the wild horses, to the health and well-being of the land, but also fiscally responsible to us, the American taxpayers.
Well, you know, your film is a really touching film, Wild Horses and Renegades, and of course you've got part 2 that you're working on coming up. They're just such beautiful animals, and as they point out in a lot of the trailers, this is something that is so iconic, so American, to see these horses in the wild, running free and open, and it really tugs at your heartstring, and it really is a subject that, if it wasn't such a distressing subject, it would be just amazingly beautiful, the photography that you've got of these horses in the wild running across the range. It's a very powerful documentary. What do you hope to see come out of this?
Well, thank you for your compliments on the film. And as you mentioned, I mean, these animals are just aesthetically beautiful. Mm-hmm. And again, we, the American people, we really identify with this symbol of freedom. You know, it puts us in contact with who we are. And this is also the horse that we rode in on. This is the horse that built America. That's and this great symbol of freedom is being rounded up, removed, and in many cases destroyed. And I think it's a reflection or a mirror of what's happening in America. And I think it's really important to us, the American people, to preserve this symbol, keep it wild and free. You know, so we need mascots in our lives, or we need mythology. The horse really encompasses that. But, you know, the outcome for this is what we hope to see is horses managed in the wild. The lands that they're currently on, Bureau of Land Management lands and some national forest lands, these lands are being auctioned off to the highest bidders. And in many cases, this is oil, gas, and mining operations. And they're doing serious degradation to the land. Now, I'm not saying that these operations and horses cannot coexist. I believe they can.
Right.
But we've got to see some stewardship on behalf of these big extractive industries and some effort on their behalf to help preserve the horse out in the wild.
You know, it's almost as if we were hunting down bald eagles or something. I mean, as you talk about it, it's such an iconic thing. You mentioned in some of the information that you sent me at the turn of the 20th century, there were several million of these wild horses. Now it's down to 17,000. And what they're doing when they cull these herds, they're leaving them so small that inbreeding is a concern, isn't it?
It is. Most of these herds are now what they term genetically non-viable, meaning there's not enough genetics in the gene pool out there to keep them strong and healthy. So they're inbreeding in many cases. And again, this is being done at the hands of the agency that is managing them, which is the Bureau of Land Management. You know, the best example is the wild horse herd that is featured in Wild Horses and Renegades. It's the Spring Creek Wild Horse Management Area. And they've taken the herd area, the geographic herd area, from roughly 120,000 acres down to 22,000 acres, and have greatly reduced the number of those horses. After the last roundup, there were only 40 adult horses after the last roundup.
Wow.
And that is a dangerously low number in terms of keeping their genetic viability. So we see this going on left and right out here in the American West.
You know, it kind of reminds me of the buffalo situation, you know, where there was an estimated 60 million buffalo, and I think when I looked it up, they estimated it down to 750 by 1890. And it wasn't really a government conservation program. Instead, it was some concerned individuals who went out and grabbed some of the remaining buffaloes. They've even got some of the names: James, Scotty, Phillip, Michael Pablo, Charles Allard. They went out and got some of these buffalo and started rebuilding the herds, and eventually they got put back into the wild. But what is it that you think is the solution with this? You say it's being driven essentially by corporatism, coming in and not having, basically getting use of the land. Is that correct? And then not doing anything at all to preserve these horses?
It is. It's being driven by massive corporatism. Many of these corporations are multinational corporations. They are buying and leasing our federal lands. And in the process, you know, not only destroying wild horse herds, but other wildlife species, and also causing great degradation to the land, you know, through films like Gasland and other films like that. We know what fracking is doing out here in the Spring Creek herd. They want to mine uranium. So these have heavy impacts on the land. And as you mentioned, the parallel between the wild horse and the buffalo is very, very similar right now. The wild horse is being managed to extinction in this country. Now, what do we want to see happen? Again, we just want to see the horses treated with respect, in the areas in which they roam treated with respect. And the wild horse is an indicator species, meaning the health of the land. If you have health in the land, the horses will roam and be healthy. But if you deteriorate the health of the land, the horses will die. Most horse owners out there know how easy it is for a horse to colic and die. And if a horse drinks polluted water, that'll happen very easily. So we need to have these wildlife indicator species out there, you know, to let us know that the land is in good check.
Right, right. Essentially a canary in a coal mine, right?
Exactly, same parallel.
Well, it's an info war, like most things. I didn't know anything about this situation before this interview came up. So how do you get the information out there? I mean, we've found that documentaries are the best ways to wake people up about anything. We can cover what's breaking in the news, but with a documentary, you've got the time to lay something out, explain what's behind it. And especially in your situation, this particular topic, the horses are so beautiful. You've done one documentary, you've got another one in production. Tell us about that. Is that a crowdsourced production, or?
Yeah, well, Wild Horses and Renegades 1 is available on DVD. You can purchase the DVD from the website theamericanwildhorse.com. And then you can also learn about our ongoing film projects with the Wild Horses, and another film project that we're doing called Horse Medicine, which focuses on horses, how the healing effects that they have on us human beings. Not only are we bringing attention to the wild horse, but we're encouraging people to get involved with horses. I just shot a show with veterans from the Iraq War and how they're healing through the horsemanship. And many, many people can go on and on about how horses have this healing effect on humans. And
that's true. It's like dogs, essentially, another species of animal like dogs. I have a friend back in North Carolina who has a child with Down syndrome, and they take the children with Down syndrome out to ride horses. It is a very therapeutic thing for people to have that kind of contact with a gentle animal like a dog, like a horse. It really is.
Yes. Yeah. I've interviewed doctors who are monitoring these programs. They've got hard scientific data on it. So we're bringing science into it as well. But getting back to the wild horse, they are a symbol of who we are. They're a symbol of our freedom, our ideology. And as I tell people, if you believe in positive change for America, start with the defense of this noble symbol of freedom. It's a symbol that belongs to all of us. It's a symbol that, it really encompasses our ideology. It's the American wild horse.
Yes.
And I think if we can conquer this one little problem of saving America's wild horses, we can move on and solve some of these much bigger problems facing the country. And the horse has a way of uniting people and bringing together people in a positive way. Most people love horses, and I think this is something we can unite on, solve the problem, and move on to some of these bigger issues.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, James Anaquad Kleinert. And give us your website one more time.
theamericanwildhorse.com.
Great, great. So people can go there, find information about how to help you, and find out information about any crowdsourcing that may be coming up as well. They can get the earlier documentary and find out about the upcoming one. So we look forward to seeing that. Thank you so much for your work.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Well, as we mentioned, documentaries are a great way to wake people up. It's a great way to inform them about a topic, support him about this issue, about the mismanagement from the Bureau of Land Management, the Bureau of Land Mismanagement. Now, we also have some documentaries that are exclusive to Infowars, exclusively available on DVD. One of those is State of Mind. Very important documentary to get people to understand, especially this time of talk about a buildup of war to Syria. It's especially important for people to understand how they're being manipulated, how they're being controlled, all the various techniques of government. It's much broader than you might expect. That's available at InfoWarsStore.com.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.